They say the Northwest Territories is a land of endless wilderness, towering mountains, silent rivers, and skies that never end. But hidden in that beauty are places the maps can't warn you about. Places where shadows move on their own, where footsteps follow you though no one's there, and where the dead aren't ready to be forgotten. Tonight, we're taking you deep into Canada's frozen frontier to uncover the top 10 most haunted places in the Northwest Territories. Stay close, because once we start, there's no turning back. One, Nahanni National Park Reserve, Valley of the Headless Men. You step off the bush plane, and the wind hits you like a whisper from another world. Before you, the jagged canyons of the Nahanni stretch into a mist so thick it feels alive. Locals call this place the Valley of the Headless Men, and they don't say it lightly. It started with the Mloud brothers in the early 1900s, prospectors chasing gold through these unforgiving cliffs. When searchers finally found them, their bodies lay sprawled in the moss, without their heads. No signs of a struggle, no tracks in the soft earth, just two lifeless torsos. Staring at the sky, they could no longer see, and they weren't the only ones. Over the decades, more men vanished here. Some were found, some never returned. A trapper named Martin Jorgensen, his cabin burned to ash, his skeleton inside, head missing. Another prospector, Phil Powers, same fate. Standing here, you feel the air tighten, as if the valley itself is watching. The Dean people warn that an evil spirit guards these lands, protecting something far older than gold. The river roars below, but every so often, you think you hear something else. A snap of branches, a low, wet thud in the distance. And that's when you realize every step you take is deeper into a place where men lose their heads, and no one ever finds out why. Two, Lost Mloud Mine, Headless Valley and Headless Creek. You've heard the stories gold beyond imagining, hidden somewhere deep in the Nahanni's shadow. They call it the Lost Mloud Mine, but what they don't tell you is the price it demands. The Mloud brothers came first, their packs heavy with gold dust and eyes burning with triumph. But when they didn't return, search parties followed the river to a narrow bend, now called Headless Creek. There, in the damp moss, the brothers lay side by side, both missing their heads. No gold, no footprints, just the echo of running water. Others tried. A man named Charlie Mloud, no relation, vanished after boasting he'd found the same vein of gold. Martin Jorgensen built a cabin nearby. Years later, his home was found burned to the ground, his body charred and headless. You stand on the creek's edge, staring at the black water curling past your boots. The Dean elders say a spirit guards the mine, a shadow that whispers to men and draws them deeper until they can't leave. Some say the gold is cursed. Others swear the land itself swallows intruders whole. But as the cold mist curls around your neck like fingers, you can't help but wonder what's worse, never finding the mine, or finding it, and joining the others who lost far more than their lives. Three, Backbay Cemetery, Yellowknife. You push open the rusted gate, and the wind carries the smell of cold earth and lake water. Backbay Cemetery isn't large, just a scatter of leaning crosses and sunken graves from the 1930s. but the air here feels heavy, as if every breath must fight its way out. The first man buried here didn't die of sickness or age. He took his own life, terrified of working deep underground in the mines. They say his ghost still lingers, pacing the boundary between the living and the dead. Some nights, fishermen on the bay hear the sound of boots dragging through gravel, though the shore is empty. The ground itself seems to be collapsing in places, wooden coffins caving under time, bones sinking into the permafrost. Locals whisper about shadowy figures moving among the graves, vanishing when approached. One visitor claimed to see a man in a miner's helmet kneeling at a grave, his face hidden, until he lifted his head, and there was nothing there. You stand among the weathered markers, the lake's surface still as glass behind you. The silence presses close, and you suddenly realize you're the only one here. At least, you hope you are. Four, Giant Mine, Yellowknife. You stand before the yawning mouth of Giant Mine, its rusting towers jutting into the sky like the bones of some colossal beast. To the Dean people, this place is Naga the monster, and as you breathe in, you understand why. The air tastes metallic, laced with the ghost of arsenic dust that once poisoned the land. For decades, men tunneled into the earth here, chasing gold, but the deeper they dug, the more the mine seemed to take. Explosions, cave-ins, men swallowed in the dark. In 1992, a deadly bombing in the tunnels killed 9 miners, leaving behind scorched rock and silence that still feels alive. Locals say the dead never left. Underground, workers have heard voices calling their names, echoing from abandoned shafts where no one stands. Tools left on the ground rattle on their own. One night, watchman swore he saw a figure in a hard hat vanish into a sealed tunnel. You peer into the black mouth of the mine. The wind rushing out is warm, too warm, as if the earth itself is exhaling. And deep in that breath, you think you hear it a whisper, low and patient, waiting for you to take just one step closer. Five, Pinepoint, abandoned town site. You follow the overgrown road until it simply stops ending in a silence so complete it feels wrong. Pinepoint was once a thriving mining town, alive with children's laughter, neon signs, and the constant hum of machinery. Now, nothing. The buildings are gone, the streets erased, as if the town was plucked from the earth and swallowed whole. But people who come here say Pinepoint isn't truly empty. They hear the clang of distant tools, the low rumble of trucks that no longer exist. One visitor swore they saw a row of houses standing under the moonlight, lights glowing warmly inside, yet when they approached, the street was bare. Nothing but wind scraping across the gravel. In the middle of what used to be Main Street, you find the faint outline of a crosswalk, half buried in weeds. The air feels heavier here, like the town is holding its breath. You think you hear footsteps behind you, slow, deliberate, yet when you turn, the road stretches empty in every direction, and then it hits you. Pinepoint didn't die quietly. It's still here, just not in a way the living can see. Six, the Smoking Hills, Cape Bathurst. You see them long before you reach them, dark, jagged cliffs along the Arctic shore, veiled in a constant plume of smoke. The Smoking Hills have burned for centuries, their layers of sulfur and shale igniting on their own, turning the air into a choking, acrid haze. But there's something about this fire that feels wrong. The Enuik people have long warned of this place. They say the smoke carries the voices of the dead, luring travelers closer until they vanish in the shifting fog. Scientists call it a natural chemical reaction, but they can't explain why. Some who venture near are never seen again. Standing at the edge, you hear the low hiss of the earth exhaling, almost like breathing. Through the smoke, shapes flicker too tall, too thin to be human, moving just beyond the edge of sight. Your eyes sting, your throat tightens, but still you can't look away. A sudden gust clears the haze for a heartbeat, revealing the blackened outline of what looks like a man, arms reaching toward you. Then the smoke swallows him again, and the hills keep burning, as they always have, as they always will. Seven. Old Anglican Church, Enuik. You push open the heavy wooden door, and it groans like something waking from a long sleep. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of aged timber and cold dust. The old Anglican church has stood here for decades, its walls weathering Arctic winters. But time isn't the only thing that lingers. They say a minister died here many years ago, collapsing in the middle of a sermon. Since then, the faithful whisper of strange happenings, hymn books falling open to the same page, the pulpit creaking under invisible weight, the faint echo of footsteps pacing the aisle when the church is locked and empty. One winter night, a caretaker claimed he saw the minister himself, clad in black robes, standing near the altar. But when he stepped forward, the figure dissolved into the candlelight, leaving only the faint smell of smoke and old wool. You stand in the pews, the silence pressing close, when a chill brushes the back of your neck. Somewhere above, the floorboards creak, slow, deliberate, as if someone is moving along the balcony. You tell yourself it's the wind, but deep down, you know someone is still giving sermons here, and he's watching you. 8. Fort Smith Mission Ruins, Fort Smith. The forest swallows the path until the trees part, revealing the crumbling bones of the old mission. Weathered stone walls rise from the moss, windows gaping like empty eyes. The Fort Smith mission was built in the late 1800s, a place meant to bring faith to the north. But faith here came with shadows. During a harsh winter, sickness swept through the mission. Many of the children in its care never saw spring. The survivors spoke of hearing whispers at night, soft voices calling their names from the chapel, even as the building stood dark. Now, the ruins stand silent, almost. Visitors have reported seeing small figures darting between the trees, their laughter faint but sharp in the still air. Others claim to hear the slow toll of a bell, though the mission's bell tower collapsed decades ago. You run your hand along the cold stone, and for a moment, you feel warmth like the brush of a child's fingers. The sound of footsteps approaches from behind, quick and light. But when you turn, there is only the forest and the ruins, watching. 9. Fort McPherson, the Lost Patrol Tomb. Snow crunches under your boots as you approach the small, weathered monument. 4 names are carved into the stone members of the 1910 Royal Northwest Mounted Police Patrol, who set out from Fort McPherson. and never returned alive. They were experienced men, but the Arctic winter is merciless. Somewhere along their route to Dawson City, they became lost. Weeks later, searchers found them frozen in the snow, faces twisted in anguish, supplies barely touched. No one could explain why they hadn't used their gear, or why they seemed to have wandered in circles. Locals say the land itself didn't want them to leave. Hunters have seen shadowy figures moving along the patrol's last known trail, vanishing into blowing snow. At the tomb, visitors sometimes hear the faint jingle of harness bells and the muffled crunch of sled runners, though no team passes by. As you stand there, the wind cuts across the open tundra, carrying with it the sound of voices low, strained, calling to each other in the white silence. You tell yourself it's only the wind, but deep down, you know the patrol is still out there, forever trying to find their way home. Local folklore and Yellowknife urban legends. Yellowknife may seem bright and bustling, but when night falls, the city has its own shadows. Locals whisper about places where the living and the dead share the same ground, old mining shafts where voices echo from the dark. Tin Can Hill, where lights bob through the trees with no source, and aging condos on Butler Road where tenants wake to find their furniture moved, or their doors unlocked. One miner swore he heard knocking from deep inside a sealed shaft, the sound following him even after he left the site. Hikers on Tin Can Hill speak of meeting strangers on the trail, people who vanish without a sound the moment they pass. And in those condos, more than one resident has woken to see a figure at the foot of their bed, watching, silent, until it fades with the dawn. You walk these streets at night, the glow of the city dim against the black sky. Somewhere beyond the streetlights, you catch a flicker of movement, just a shadow, you tell yourself. But when you glance back, it's standing closer. From headless prospectors in the Nahanni to ghost towns that refuse to let go, the Northwest Territories hides more than just history. It hides secrets the living were never meant to find. These places still stand, waiting in the cold, their stories whispered in the wind. So tell me, which one would you dare to visit after dark? Or better yet, would you make it back to tell the tale?